close your eyes for a second and just picture the scene. You're sitting in a crowded room. Maybe it's a bustling coffee shop, a really lively office, or even a party. You're literally surrounded by chatter, laughter, people moving all around you, and yet you feel entirely invisible, like you're trapped behind this thick, invisible wall of social anxiety. It is a heavy, crushing feeling of isolation, isn't it? Well, if you've ever felt that way, I want you to know right now that you are absolutely not alone. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to tear that wall down together. Because look, this isn't just some personal, isolated feeling. It's actually a modern epidemic. Back in 2019, statistics came out revealing that an astonishing 61% of Americans admit to regular feelings of loneliness. Think about that for a second. That is more than half the population feeling totally disconnected in an era where, technically, we're more connected than ever before. We're dealing with a massive, widespread crisis of human connection. But here's the good news. There's a science-backed way out. Today, we're diving deep into some incredible insights from James W. Williams' book, How to Make People Like You. And you know, Williams doesn't just write from some academic ivory tower. He writes from deep, painful experience. When he was in his 20s, he was actually crippled by social anxiety. It got so bad that he lost out on a major promotion, even though he was hands down the most qualified candidate. Why? Well, simply because he lacked the connection-building skills of a highly charismatic coworker. That sting, that absolute heartbreak, pushed him to study the actual science of human connection. And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. All right, let's jump right into part 1, breaking the initial ice. We're going to talk about overcoming that totally paralyzing fear of making the first move. So Louis Armstrong famously sang, "When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you." Now, I know that sounds like just a lovely, feel-good cliche, but it turns out it's a biological reality. Picture that one person who walks into a room and just effortlessly commands it with a warm smile. You know the type, right? Well, a 2015 study in social cognitive and affective neuroscience proved that seeing someone smile actually physically changes our brain's electrical activity. No joke. When you smile at someone, you literally alter their brain chemistry to make them feel more secure. You instantly become a beacon of safety for them. But, okay, what about the very real fear of actually going up and saying hello? The first step here is just acknowledging that the fear of rejection is completely natural. From an evolutionary standpoint, being rejected from your tribe literally meant you wouldn't survive. But today, a weird interaction at a coffee shop definitely isn't going to kill you. Step 2 is a real game changer. Take the risk off the other person's shoulders. Nobody wants to risk embarrassment, right? So by stepping up and initiating a really low-stakes interaction, like simply asking a cashier how their day is going, you completely remove that pressure. You get to be the brave one. Now, here is a totally counterintuitive piece of psychological magic to break the ice. Ask for a small favor. Now, I'm not talking about asking someone to help you move a couch. I mean something small, like asking for advice on a project or maybe a quick book recommendation. Studies by researchers like John Decker show that this taps directly into our deep, innate human need to belong. It silently communicates to the other person, "Hey, I respect your judgment." That instantly boosts their self-esteem. And by making them feel really good about themselves, they naturally, automatically start feeling good about you. Moving on to part 2, sowing seeds of connection. This is all about transforming those surface-level acquaintances into genuine, lifelong friends. This brings us to the absolute core of conversation, which was brilliantly highlighted in a 2003 study by Fei Do. It's the massive difference between listening to respond versus listening to understand. We've all been there, right? Think about that crushing, incredibly isolating feeling of talking to someone who's just staring at their phone, basically just waiting for you to take a breath so they can jump in. It's the worst. They are listening to respond. To truly connect with someone, you have to listen to understand. You have to empathize with their emotions, mentally put yourself in their shoes, and truly hold space for their words. So, how do you actually keep a conversation flowing without those painfully awkward silences? Well, first off, we've got to drop those little lies we tell to protect our egos. Dan Ariely's research shows that as humans, we lie constantly just to protect our self-image. But true, deep connection, that demands total honesty. Second, try to avoid those dead-end one-word answers. Aim for 2 sentences and always add the why. So instead of just saying, "I love running," say something like, "I love running on the treadmill because it really clears my mind after a long day." See the difference? Finally, ask opinion-based questions. It's a foolproof way to make the other person feel deeply respected and valued. C.S. Lewis once beautifully said, "Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, 'What? You too? I thought I was the only one.'" And you know what's wild? Neuroscience actually backs this up completely. In this fascinating study, researchers monitored participants' brains while they and others were given mild electric shocks. When a total stranger was shocked, the participant barely reacted. But when a friend was shocked, their brain physically reacted exactly as if they were being shocked themselves. Finding shared ground literally, biologically links our nervous systems together. How crazy is that? Which leads us beautifully into part 3, the power of shared experiences, how we build the foundation of lifelong memory. You've probably heard that old saying, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Well, it turns out you absolutely must be highly selective with your energy. A 2013 study in psychological science actually proved that if you want to make better life choices, simply spending time with strong-willed, uplifting people actively improves your own habits. So take a hard look at your inner circle. Are they pulling you up or are they holding you down? I want you to take a second and think about your absolute favorite memory with a close friend right now. Really mentally visualize it, the laughter, the specific location, the warm feeling in your chest. Got it? Okay. As you do that, realize that sharing positive experiences like that triggers a massive biological rush of dopamine in your brain. From an evolutionary standpoint, your brain directly associates that intense pleasure and safety with the person standing right next to you. By proactively creating fun, stress-free shared experiences, you are literally hardwiring your brain and theirs for long-term connection. Now we're getting deep. Part 4, the courage to be vulnerable. This is how we unlock the deepest levels of trust and emotional intimacy. Let's get one thing straight right off the bat. Vulnerability is absolutely not a weakness. Society loves to tell us that hiding our insecurities and acting tough is what keeps us safe, right? But the renowned researcher Brené Brown's philosophy completely shatters this toxic myth. True liberation and profound connection only happen when we bravely lay our authentic, messy selves on the table. It takes immense courage to admit you're struggling or to share a quirky habit you're secretly insecure about. But when you do, it acts as this beautiful, magnetic permission slip for the other person to be real with you too. And a huge part of being vulnerable is learning to give without that exhausting transactional mindset. The 2009 Alliance hypothesis showed us that true friendships completely transcend that basic, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine dynamic. Honestly, if you clean the house or buy a friend a coffee simply to hold it over their head later, well, that isn't love, that's manipulation. The most beautiful, enduring relationships flourish in an arena of unconditional, selfless giving. It's when you support the other person purely because you want to see them thrive, without secretly keeping some hidden scoreboard in your head. Our final and perhaps most absolutely vital tool in all of this is our words. Author Don Miguel Ruiz warns that our words are literally like magic. They cast spells of light or they cast spells of dark. Think of the completely heartbreaking story Ruiz tells of a little girl who just loved to sing. She sang all the time. But one day her mother, who was just totally exhausted and stressed from work, snapped. She told the little girl to shut up because her voice was annoying. And that little girl? She internalized that dark magic and never sang again. Our words have the terrifying power to crush a person's spirit, but they also have the miraculous power to elevate someone to the top of a mountain. Which brings us to a direct challenge for you today, right now. Will you choose to cast spells of light? Are you going to be the one to smile first, to ask the brave question, to really listen deeply, and finally, step out of the shadows of isolation? The roadmap to profound human connection is literally right in your hands. But you have to be the one to take that first courageous step. The world is waiting for you. So, how will you spark a connection today?